and we have to get our country and our police force back on track and get rid of two-tier policing in Britain. Now, since I've been away, lots have happened, and this has got to be one of the most horrific things that I've witnessed for a very, very long time, and that is the death of Henry Nowak. And it's been a struggle with that one, because as soon as that came out on the news, I watched the video as soon as it was released. And I had to go to bed, to be honest, because it's stuck in the brain. For anybody that's got an 18-year-old, you know what I'm talking about. I've done an 18-year-old son. And to think that a police officer would treat a citizen of Britain like that is just beyond comprehension. And I've had a lot of time to think about this while I've been off air. And the only conclusion I can come to is our police force is shockingly crap right now. It's absolutely annihilated by our government. And we do have two-tier policing in operation here. Now, the situation was that this Sikh guy, who had been reported several times by his own community to the police, had essentially stabbed Henry Nowak multiple times. Police arrived and they took the side of this Sikh man, dragging Henry Nowak across gravel, and unfortunately he died on the scene. Now, there's one thing, right, for a human to see another human on the floor unable to get up and saying, I've been stabbed, and just going, you haven't, mate. Now, that's one thing, right? You've got to be a hardened individual, and I do understand that those who have been in the police have become hardened to some very tragic situations and horrible situations. But there's another for the cover-up that was about to take place to save face for the police force. The police were going to cover it up as if this wasn't something that the police, that was a police issue. This wasn't a Sikh issue. They didn't want to. None of the newspapers wanted to say that this was a Sikh man. It was just, another man had just stabbed this 18-year-old. No, this was a Sikh man, and bearing in mind that the Sikhs did come out and say that this is not what their community does, this is not what their religion actually promotes, and they don't agree with it, and they'll do whatever it takes in order to bring him to justice. But it was the police that tried to do this. Matthew, when you saw that video, what did you think?
Yeah, I sadly saw the video. It was horrific. It was the blatant disregard for one's testimony of what's happened, and taking the word of someone else because of the fear of being called racist.
Yes.
Ultimately, that's what it came down to. Is there was an accusation of racism, and that is higher up on the hierarchy of important things to believe and to acknowledge, rather than I've been stabbed. Yeah.
Now, what was the fella that the police in America, they kneeled on his neck? What was he called? The black guy?
George Floyd.
George Floyd, right?
Yeah, which obviously erupted all of the BLM extravaganza.
But the Black Lives Matter movement was born and birthed out of what happened to George Floyd. Henry Nowak, where's everybody gone? Where's all the news gone? Where's the people voicing the absolute disbelief at the injustice that's been done to Henry and his family? Like, where's everybody kneeling? This used to be a thing. This was a global movement, BLM, right? A complete corrupt movement by people that didn't give two hoots about George Floyd. What they did want was money and finance and cash in their pockets, which they did, funny enough, get. But there were people filming themselves kneeling down all over the world, right? Especially Christians, right? Oh, they were partaking in all this nonsense. Henry Nowak passes away under circumstances where the police did not save his life, ignored him while he was dying. And where is everybody? There's been a flutter of people, being in justice movement or whatever, White Lives Matter. Where is it? I mean, it's so frustrating that white people are treated so horrifically in a country that is predominantly white. but even by police officers who are white. And they're not even considering that British white people have just as much a right to justice and to live as any other ethnicity, and it's absolutely disgusting. So it took me, I'm not going to lie, it took me a good week to get that stuff out of my brain, and I didn't particularly want to film a video about it because it's horrific, isn't it, Matthew? It's just...
Yeah, I read something about, I think some assessment medically suggested that he wouldn't have survived the injuries anyway.
No.
So he was, ultimately fatally stabbed. But it was the obviously treatment, being dragged across the floor, handcuffed, that exacerbated the situation. At least he should have been receiving utmost medical care during the last few minutes.
Yeah.
But it was the disregard, wasn't it? And ultimately, what is being taught to these recruits in training, that there is this hierarchy. Racism is the ultimate sin. It's the ultimate crime, isn't it? And everything else just doesn't really register quite as much, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, and I think the government have made this even worse. You've had protests out on the street, minimal ones now, right? Small ones. And the police have arrested people in these protests for being outraged at the fact that, one of their own got stabbed and killed and the police officer didn't give a jack about them. So, the government are essentially to blame for the way that they handle race and ethnicity in our country. The way they handle culture is so inept. It just leads us on to the immigration problem that we've got. That is a key issue that throws up all sorts of problems when it comes to this Henry Nowak situation. Its ethnicity does come into it. And nobody wants to say that because they're all right with the BLM saying it, that it's, it's black and everything, it's all about black people. But when it's about white people, no, ethnicity doesn't matter. It isn't part of the problem. It is part of the problem, and police officers are being taught in their training that they have to take minority ethnicities into consideration over white people. Something's wrong. It's ridiculous. So that's all I got to say on the matter. But please, if you see anything on social medias that is promoting the injustice of what's happening in the Henry Nowak case, I know that this morning the government has announced that the police officers involved are being investigated. I mean, it's not enough. It's just not enough. But there we go. It is happening sometime soon. But please share. Please do not forget what has happened to Henry Nowak. We have to remember, and we have to get our country and our police force back on track and get rid of two-tier policing in Britain. So don't look to the left and look to the right. Look up, Britain.